and welcome back to Dynamics Unplugged and another edition in our series, Dynamics 365, Finance and Supply Chain Management, Dynamics A to Z. Today we're back with the letter O, and we got a manufacturing topic for you. O is for operations. If I navigate to my production control module and we look under the setup and routes, we have operations. Operations are the production activities, the tasks that it takes for a company who manufactures something, and that can be complicated manufacturing where you get into process manufacturing with chemicals or food or builds that have 10, 20, 50 operations or take an extended period of time, or it could be very simple kitting and assembly management. Either way, operations represent the physical tasks that take place for a company to produce something via production and batch orders in D365. Those operations are then used in a couple of main ways. One, in scheduling. You typically have time associated with those operations, so you can schedule production orders, whether you're scheduling at a very broad level, not a static planning level in your operation scheduling, or if you're operating very granularly and you're using something like job scheduling and capacity planning with setup time, process time, transit time. Operations also represent cost. So this assembly operation that we're seeing could be a different operating expense than our dispense operation, which could be different from a specialized fabricating machinist role, or our quality time that we're building in, or our packing time. So operations can represent that costing context. If I click on any of these, you can see there's a relations button at the top. Operation relations are what shows the link between an operation and the production or manufacturing routes that they're associated with. So that particular packing operation is available in these item relations for these routes. See the route relation here that exists with that operation on it. I want to reposition and look at that same information now starting in the routes form, where if we take a particular route, like the standard speaker route D0003, and click on route details, we'll see the operations that are associated with building out the speakers that have this route associated with them, or the production and batch orders that use this route. There are 4 operation steps. The first operation, the primary operation, is an assembly step. And then there's operation 20. Now, operation 20 has 2 different priorities, as you can see, associated with it. Operations can have a primary priority and a secondary priority. This is very often used when we want to plan the capacity and measure or record bottlenecks for both the machine and the machinist. Maybe we have a work cell that we need to schedule against, but we also need to find a particular capability or skill set of the employee who's going to be doing that, so we can link operations that are happening concurrently together. This particular example shows a testing operation that is happening, and then the operator time that it takes to perform that testing. Then have operation 30, or the 4th operation, which is a packing operation. Now you can see an error keeps popping up that a cost category has not been specified. That gets to the rest of what the operation represents, and as I mentioned, it can represent the costing piece. Before we get to costing, you can see my overview tab for the operation in this production route, or the route details for the standard speaker, is a route group. A route group defines how that operation will be used. For example, from an estimation and costing standpoint, do we consider setup time, run time, and quantity? And then from a posting standpoint, do we automatically consume labor times associated with setup time, run time, and quantity? And do we report feedback against that particular operation consumption of materials? And then as far as the route job itself, we talked about job scheduling a few videos ago, and today we're talking about operations. We can do operation scheduling. Do you include these types of runtimes in an operation? Queue, setup, process, overlap, transport, and queue after. Are they used in job management, job scheduling, and manufacturing execution, or just the operation itself? Are you using working time, and is it capacity managed? Is it capacity controlled? That route group is the first important setup for an operation in a production route. Under the general tab, you'll see a lot of that same information. Under setup is where you'll see the cost categories. Configuration controls if cost categories are required to populate for setup time, runtime or process, and quantity. This error was telling me that a cost category had not been specified. On the next tab, we have times. What times make up that operation? Similar to what we saw in the route group, are these activated? Queue time, setup time, runtime, transit, queue time after. I only have runtime or process time for my packing operation. It takes 1 hour. If it's a operation that does not take long, you can change this hours over time to minutes. So if I want to represent and put my time in minutes, I could do that. So I could say equals 1 divided by 60 and get my hours over time of 0.0167 hours. This particular time, if I left it as is, would be 1 minute per a process quantity of 15. Next, we have our resource load. This is where you can manage splitting a particular operation amongst multiple resources. If I were to update that quantity to higher than 1, I could define the split percentage between the resources that could be used. Then we have our resource requirements. Where will this particular operation actually take place? This packing operation is not defining a unique resource or resource group. It's actually saying that it requires a capability that must be assigned with the resource or resource group that performs this operation. So as long as the resource or resource group has the capability attribute associated with it of packing and speakers, then it will be acceptable to be scheduled against for this packing operation on the standard speaker. And then finally, we have the description tab. This can be used for notes for that operation. If you're printing a route card for the production order, those notes can display. They can be handy for instructions for a worker at that operation on any given work order. That's it for the letter O, a basic overview of operations in Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain Management. We will see you next time for another edition of Dynamics 365 F&SC A to Z.